All right, I guess we're live. Hello, everybody. How's it going? What's up? Welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Wade Acuff, and I'll be your host today. We have Alex Hogue with us for 2 days. Alex is a videographer, photographer, drone pilot, and adventurer. But for us, he's going to be our editor and workflow guru. Alex, how's it going?
Going great, man. Thanks for having me, Wade.
Um, Before we get into it, I just want to say if you missed the previous streams, you can view the replays on Behance and over on YouTube. Be sure to check out Chris Blackstock as he creates an environment for his characters. And I want to say hello to chat. How's it going, chat? We've got Annika. We've got Laura. Cody Bear, thanks so much for being our mod, Cody. Let's see, Alex, why don't we just get into it? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what we have planned for today?
Yeah, I'm Alex. I do video production, photography, graphics, drone, everything that Wade mentioned. Living out in Bend, Oregon, and I've been doing video a long time. I've been running my own business for video for about the last 2 years or so up here in Bend, Oregon, and so I started out self-taught way back in the day in high school, making BMX videos. That kind of evolved to various different jobs, anything from working at TGR as an intern, which is a ski snowboard film company out in Jackson, Wyoming, to shooting national park videos, weddings, Super Bowl commercials, all that sort of stuff. And that eventually evolved to working at GoPro. Did a lot of things there over the course of 7 years. And now I'm out here in Bend doing my thing, working with a lot of the same clients. And personally, I just love being in nature, love being outdoors, and I try to orient my work to be working on stuff like that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have some work you want to show us?
Yeah, so up here on the screen, we can screen share here. So we got my website here. This is just kind of an example of some of the stuff I've been working on over the course of the last few years. Not everything's up here, but this is the project we're going to focus on today. It was a project I did for Skydio. They're a drone company manufactured in the US, and I've done a lot of different projects with them. But yeah, take a look at my site, done all sorts of things, anything from advertising, that sort of stuff. We got photography.
An impressive client list. Really impressive client list. It's amazing. And the footage and everything you show is, I've kind of done some research to your work as we were getting prepped for this. And it seems like everything I look at is just, top notch.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, it's been a progress for sure. It's been a process for sure. So I've gotten to be really lucky and work on a lot of really cool stuff. So that's my website, alexhogue.com. Check it out. And then over on Instagram at just ahhogue. It's me and my last name. So
we'll be sure to drop those links into chat for you.
Cool. Well, with that, I think let's go ahead and get into what we're going to be working on. If that sounds good to you. Cool.
Absolutely.
So 1 second here. So as I mentioned, over today and tomorrow, we'll be back tomorrow. My hope is to kind of focus on this project I did out in British Columbia. I went out and shot with Darren Bearclaw and Kenny Smith. It was part of a Skydio project. And then a little while later, they had me edit, that sort of stuff. So I think it's probably best to just start by showing the project that we're going to be working on. And then what I'd like to do today is focus on getting, basically, I want to give you some tips and tricks for how to structure a project, find music, pull selects, just everything to get from kind of point A to point B. And then we're not going to polish it too much today, but we are going to upload to Frame.io, which is used for remote reviewing. And yeah, I think we'll probably get to about there today, and then tomorrow we'll pick up and polish things off.
That sounds good. What are we starting with today?
So I'll go ahead and start with, this is the finished video that was published for Skydio that I worked on. So I'll go ahead and play that through. It's about, I want to say 2.5, 3 minutes long. And then, yeah, if we got time for all that, we can just watch that and then we'll dive in.
Sweet. Out here with some Skydio drones, shooting some mountain biking.
And to get a zone like this that's just endless slabs.
It's like rugged West Coast coastline. So unique. I launched the Skydio drone to scope for access to this line that I scouted from Google Earth. And it looks like we can hike up the ridge and get to where we want to go.
Definitely not gonna get fat on this trip. I know.
Not only are drones rad for filming, but they're also rad for scouting.
Oh, it looks a little rugged, eh?
It's like somebody came in here with concrete.
There's a cool little rock face on this spine. Terminal velocity.
Wait. We've been eyeing up this whole freaking amazing landscape, and looks like there's a 6 shelf that we could ride.
There's no way to get around.
There's no way down that way.
Sheer cliffs all the way around.
Yeah, we're really doing it now. That's what we're doing. We're really doing it.
Bucket list trip for sure. So beautiful.
Yeah, that's some amazing footage right there. I mean, that whole edit was great. We already have questions coming in. What drone are you using, and how many batteries do you take?
Oh, that's one I've gotten before. So this is the Skydio 2 Plus, and Skydio is a drone company, like I said, manufactured in the US. They're known for a lot of their autonomy skills, but also their obstacle avoidance is just bonkers. It's insane. It's so good. So definitely check them out. And then batteries, someone asked me this a little while ago, and I think it was about 16 to 20 batteries I took with me. So we were out in a remote spot, so carrying all those is pretty heavy.
Sure, that adds up.
Yeah, so this project, this was kind of a smaller breakout piece I did for Skydio. The purpose of being out there was actually to shoot a larger, longer length movie called The Granite Fringe. You guys can watch that here if you're interested in it. But basically, my role was to go out there, get some cool shots, and support Skydio and the athletes out there. So let's see here.
How many on the crew? Just curious. Like, was it just 3, 4?
Yeah, so it was the 2 athletes, Kenny and Darren, and then myself. I was just primarily there for drone with Skydio, and then we had 1 shooter with red camera and then 1 photographer. So we had 5 people total.
Wow.
So what I'd like to kick it off with, I want to start just really big picture on any project. I think it's really important to kind of go through some really important questions, define what the project scope is. By doing this, you're going to know what to look for when you're pulling selects, music, What is the purpose of the video? Just really important questions you should ask. So I'm going to kind of plow through these, but feel free, anyone who's watching live, toss some additional questions in the chat. But let's go ahead and go through them. So before you start any project, ask yourself, why are we doing the project? In this case, as I just mentioned, I was showcasing a product, which was the Skydio 2 Plus. The purpose was to build brand awareness, collect advertising assets for the company. And then secondary mission there was to support the athletes, kind of teach them how to use the drone, capture content for the main film, and just provide personal training in general for, production tips. Kind of video is it? The ask from Skydio, which is what I needed to make, was to create a 2 to 5 minute highlight. And this was part of a series they already developed called Skydio and its Element. So there's a couple different ones. So it did have some branding and formatting that we wanted to follow. The main piece would be 16:9, 4K. And then we also did some social Instagram cut downs. And hopefully if we have time on day 2, I'll get into that as well, how to bring it to social once you have a bigger piece and how to get that formatted properly.
Nice.
Another thing, who's important to our story. So this is pretty important because, as we just talked about, there were 5 of us out there. So it is possible for all 5 of us to be part of that story since it's such a small crew. And as you saw in the edit, I'm actually in it. So I did use some behind the scenes kind of content to keep it going and put a little bit more story element into it. But primarily Darren and Kenny are who we're focused on, and that's who we're going to be pulling selects for. Where are we? Macro, big picture. We are out in a really remote spot in British Columbia, Canada, with massive granite slabs, some of the biggest in the world. So that's going to be the primary thing we need to communicate to whoever's going to be watching this edit piece. And then on a smaller scale, there's various sub locations that we hike to each day. When will it be released? That's basically how much time do you have for the edit? So just, a basic question of, hey, do I have months to do this or do I have a week to do this? And in today's world, it's probably due tomorrow. So
Exactly.
And then the last big question to kind of ask yourself before you dive in is, what are the perceived challenges? So this one's actually pretty big. So whenever you start a project, whether it's for yourself, for a client, you really want to dive into trying to be proactive in defining whatever those challenges are that might come up. So this is a couple that I came up with when I was doing this. I figured the biggest challenge was going to be linking the shots together. Since primarily this is a Skydio piece with just Skydio footage, there are a couple other supporting shots, but for the most part, we want to stick to the footage that I shot with the drone. That makes it a little challenging because, as you know, the drone buzzing sound, that's not the best audio. So again, not a ton of audio to work with, mixing footage from multiple sources. So we did have Red, Skydios, GoPros, that sort of stuff, DSLRs. And then the biggest challenge of all, finding the right music, which is key because music is 50% of your video. And you need something that has good energy, good vibe, but still keeps it all moving.
Excellent. Yeah, I think you nailed it with the music in that one. There was a lot of comments about really enjoying the soundtrack.
Awesome. So let's just assume I came back and I have all this footage now, right? So what I kind of want to touch on is my process, and this is with any project. It varies a little bit from project to project, but it kind of stays the same for the most part. So we're going to come back. We have a new folder. We're going to call it Mountain Bike Canada. And this is really where it comes down to organization. You want to be sure to, just keep all your footage organized. That way, if anyone ever needs to pick it up in the future, they can know exactly where the footage is. It's clean, it's easy. So it's just kind of a workflow process that I picked up over the years and kind of continued to develop from company to company and project to project. So the first thing, we're going to make a folder, and we can call this Premiere. You can also call it Project. This is where your actual Premiere files are going to live. So your project's going to live in here. And then we're going to make another one. You might notice I'm putting these numbers on here. This is my OCD organization, and I'm skipping 2. I do know how to count, but I'm doing that on purpose, actually. So, and this is something you may or may not like, but in the future, if I ever need to I like things to be, if you come back to the folder enough times, I like things to be sequentially in order. Your brain starts to get used to where it is. So to be a little bit quicker, I put these numbers here so that way it always organizes it. So my Premiere project's always going to be on top. My RAWs are always going to be the next one down. I leave this O2 in case there's ever a folder I want to put in between there. The numbers are totally, preference if you want to do that.
What would be an example of what you might put between there?
Things come up all the time, but like the rest of the ones that are going to be in here are going to be like, let's see. So we could do audio, and we're going to put subfolders within all of these as well. But these are just kind of the root folders. We're going to have another one for graphics. Let's see. Another one could just be miscellaneous. And you might even break that into like maybe you have expenses from a project and it's not part of the edit, but you want to keep it all together on the same hard drive. So you might come up with something. Again, it's a total preference thing. It's just something that I've been doing, and I don't always do it, but just a nice little tip to have. And then your last one could be, exports. So within all of these, Premiere is pretty self-explanatory. That's where we're going to put our Premiere project. RAWs is for all the footage. So this is super crucial whenever you're out on a production, and sometimes people hand you the footage. Sometimes you're lucky enough to be the one to be there shooting it and copying it onto hard drives. There's a lot of different ways to do this, but I think the big takeaway is to have a good hierarchy of organization. So this was a multi-day shoot. So maybe the first one's day 1, and then we go day 2, 3, 4. Within that, maybe it's whatever camera it was. So it could be Skydio, Drone 1. And then we can have, Red, GoPro, DSLR. You get the idea.
Real quick, I don't know if this is something you could do easily, but there's a request to be able to zoom in a bit or maybe make the resolution. It looks like you're working off a high resolution screen. Yeah,
we're on the 4K. We'll crank it down a bit here if I can figure out where that's at.
Also, a couple other questions. Let's see what Laura's asking. How many hours does it take you to fully edit a project like this? And what color profile are you using on the GoPro to be able to color grade?
So the color profile, typically, it really depends on the camera. That's a much bigger conversation. But I would just use the current cameras, like the 8s, the 9s, and the 10s. They're pretty good with just, I think it's the natural color profile that's on there now. But there's a lot of other settings we could get into, but I don't want to take away all the time, just to make sure you're getting the right color settings. So like setting ISO, that sort of stuff. And then to answer the question on how long it takes, that really varies, and it depends on your client. It depends how well you do and how many notes you get back. But I would say
how much time they give you, right?
On average, something like this is going to probably take about 40 hours to get it fully polished and dialed. Maybe much longer, maybe a little bit shorter if you're able to get away with one. So
thanks for adjusting your resolution.
Yeah, hopefully that
it.
helps a little bit. And are you guys seeing my full screen here? It doesn't look like it still. So there we go. Okay, so this is my actual project folder. So to save you from the pain of watching me make all these folders, this is kind of my structure here. RAWs, day 1, drone 1, card 1, card 2. Most of the time when we were out on this shoot, we did morning sessions and evening sessions, and we take a break at lunch. So you could divide it up that way depending on whatever works for your production and your scenario. But I think the big takeaway is just be really intentional with your organization.
Just as a question I have, what kind of pre-pro, like, do you guys go scout the area and kind of do like a shot list, or do you get there and then start deciding what you're gonna
Yeah,
I mean,
so this is where my specialty kind of comes into play versus maybe a more traditional uh, Netflix Hollywood type of film.
mhm.
We do try to do as much pre-production as possible, and I do firmly believe pre-production is insanely important. Darren and his crew, Darren's the writer, he lives out there, so he did go out there and scout it, take some photos. He picked the area and everything. So we knew we were out there camping, so it was remote. There's no service or anything. We were just remote camping for 4 or 5 days. But in terms of the shots and such, this style of editing and shooting really comes down to what the athlete is feeling. So we go out there and they're going to pick the lines. They might, most of the time, these lines are so big that you only get one shot to shoot it because it takes 2 to 3 hours to hike up there. And then, or maybe the light's changing, or maybe someone gets hurt. You kind of roll with it, but you kind of plan out, I guess, as much as possible, the general direction of like the story arc that you want. Like, what are the big things that we're trying to tell? The only other things really quick on here, audio, I always break that down into music. So you can have your different music folders here, sound effects. And then if we did have voiceover, maybe you'd have another folder for all your voiceover. Graphics, this one just popped up on its own, but basically I'll have my After Effects project, assets. Inside assets, you're gonna have, again, this particular one's a little messy because I actually media managed the project already. But basically you would have maybe your bumpers from the company, any graphics, that sort of stuff that you need would live in there. And then your renders are going to be, in your render folder. Exports, same thing. Just be really intentional with your organization. I think I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but I usually do, at the minimum, I'll do one for review. Those will be all the reviews that you send out. And then deliverables, that's when it's fully finished. And then maybe miscellaneous if you're just testing something. Baked is anything. Baked is kind of an old term, but it's basically anything that you're rendering with effects like fully applied into it. So, all right. I think that's that. So let's go ahead and make a Premiere project. And spoiler, I already have one here, but we're going to make a new one.
Nice. This is a good time to welcome anybody that is just now coming in. We have Alex Hogue walking through his workflow for us. And we're just kind of getting started into the, I guess we're doing the selects maybe, or what are we up to now?
Yeah, so we're just going to set up a project really quick. And then I kind of want to touch on maybe a couple little tips and tricks I do, some keyboard shortcuts I use, that sort of stuff. And then we'll dive right into selects and then music.
Nice. All right.
So, I'm going to assume most people have made a project in Premiere, but basically this is the screen. You title your project here. You can create a new sequence if you want. I just leave it all off. Let's see. Let's just go ahead and create a new project. All right. So your project bin in here should basically mirror exactly what we just went through in that folder. So as much as possible, all your audio should be in a root folder for audio. This is just the way I do it. Everyone's got their own ways, but other things you're going to have audio, graphics, all that sort of stuff. So we're going to go in here, make your new bins, organize it that exact way. So it's going to eventually look something like this. So I have my raws, sequences. That's obviously just for within Premiere. So I do racks, and racks are basically going to be your selects. If there's a lot of footage, you might make individual sequences for, maybe it's just all the action footage, all your best shots, all the scenics, that sort of stuff. So you could make a sequence for each one of those if it's a big project. And then any other kind of miscellaneous sequences you might have that aren't necessarily edits, which leads us to edits. Those are actual V1, V2, V3, hopefully not V27. But in a lot of cases there are. So, and then nests, Anything that gets nested in Premiere, I just try to keep it clean and toss it in a folder. And then finally, at the end of the project, you'd have your deliverables. Same thing with audio, music, sound effects, voiceover, color. Sometimes it can be helpful to keep the project really streamlined, just to bake the color. And by baking, I mean just exporting it, bringing it back in and dropping it in the timeline, so everything plays smoothly. So let's imagine we brought in all of our footage here, and to do that, it would just be, we drag in our footage into here. Now it's here, and it's laid out super clean. We know exactly where everything is. So if anyone ever asks us, hey, you remember that rock we climbed on day 2 in the evening? Can I see that shot? You know right where to go to it. For the most part, at least, you're not digging through hours and hours of footage, and instead, maybe you're only digging through an hour of footage. So one other thing I want to touch on, because it is a 4K project, and there is red footage and various compressed footages that can get really laggy on your computer, depending on the quality of machine you have. So what I did is I actually created proxies, and a proxy is basically a lower resolution, small file that will play back smoother and quicker within Premiere. And Adobe's actually done a great job in making this implemented much, much better and smoother and easy. So it works really well. And the process for that, if you don't already have proxies from your camera, if you bring in your footage into Premiere, so let's just take card 1, drone 1, for example. You can actually right click here, proxy, and I already have proxies, but in your case, you could hit create proxies. And what that's going to do is bring up this window. And we have a couple different options here. If you have your own settings from Media Encoder, you could import it here if you have something specific that works for you. But what I did is I chose QuickTime, and I choose ProRes low resolution proxy. The reason I went with QuickTime, it is typically going to be a bigger file, so maybe space is still a concern, but not as much as the raw footage. The reason I went with QuickTime is it typically is a less compressed file than a MP4 or H.264, so it's less to uncompress, and therefore it plays smoother. So Premiere doesn't have to work as hard to unpack all of that data. So what I did for this project, I basically went through, you can even filter out the footage if you don't want to go by folder. You can just go, .mp4. There's all your MP4s for the whole project. Same thing with red footage or GoPro. MP4 is most of it, and then there's minimal red footage. But we would do that and basically just, create proxies and then let it go. I choose next to original media. So what that does is it creates another folder next to your original folder. So we got proxies here within this folder, and then here's all my proxy files.
Yeah, it just keeps everything together, right?
Yeah, it keeps it all nice and clean, and then it's easy to connect if things ever do get moved around from hard drive to hard drive. And then to know that they're working and how they're used, you could probably see here, and you may not have it on yours if you've never done proxies before, but this proxy icon or label here, proxy media file name and media path. So those don't appear by default in Premiere. But the way to get that to show up, and we know it's attached here because it says attached under proxy. If you don't have that on yours, if you right click in this little bar area here, go to metadata display. We're going to toggle down the Premiere Pro project metadata. And in here, I don't know if you've ever looked in here before, but there's a million different things you can customize and put on here. Way more than I'll ever use. And I think the most important one is going to be proxy. So that's a nice one to see visually whether it's attached or not. There's a couple other ones I have here, which would be proxy file path, but we know they're right next to our original footage, and then proxy media file name. For me, those aren't as important, but just know that they're there.
Could you just sum up what a proxy is again? We have a question in chat.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, happy to. So a proxy is basically a low res temporary version of your full res media file. So what that allows you to do is just play back really high quality footage on maybe a computer that's not as great or not as powerful. And that's just temporary. So when you render it out, it actually Premiere will automatically render the full quality so long as it's connected still. And to kind of show that just really fast. So to use proxies, there's this button here. This is toggle proxies. And again, to show that, it's going to be on this little plus icon and it'll be living in here and you can just drag it down. So I've already done that here. Got to get used to this resolution here. All right. All right. So we have that button here from the proxy. Let's take a look. So this is full res on here, but proxies are enabled right now. So I don't know if you guys can see it on your end, but it does look pretty blurry. Now, if I toggle this proxy off, much sharper, it's now linked to the proper 4K 60 frame file. And as soon as you toggle that on and off, that's for your whole timeline. It automatically turns them on or off. So luckily my computer usually plays it back pretty smooth. Maybe not right now because we're streaming, but with the proxies on, it should be much better. Yeah. So it just makes a world of difference and you're going to save yourself so much time. So those proxies do take a long time to connect, but I guess basically set them all, go get yourself a nice sushi dinner and come back in the morning ready to edit. All right, so then we got proxies. What's next? Let's, real quick, I'll share a couple keyboard shortcuts that I like to use. So if you go into that edit keyboard shortcuts, it's going to bring up a screen like this. There's a whole bunch built into Premiere that, you know, most of us probably might know, might not know, but a couple that I like to do, and you can hit this search thing. Close gap is one of them. What that'll do is if there's gaps on the timeline, you can highlight everything. You know, say I had a bunch of little black gaps here, and this is really helpful. I'll show you in the selects process that we're going to get into in a minute. But you can highlight everything. I set it to, I have a number pad on my keyboard. I set it to the minus because that just tells me, oh, hey, we're going to delete those spaces. But I do recommend maybe setting close gap is one I use frequently. What is it? Reveal in project or? There's a couple here. They're kind of all the same. It just makes a difference on whether you're tapped on this panel here in the project, in the sequence, or actually in the window here. But reveal in Explorer, reveal in project, and reveal in project from the timeline. Reveal in project, I use this all the time, and I just set it to 0 on the number pad. You can set it to whatever you want, but I use this so often. And what that does is basically, if I have this clip here and I don't want to right click, and it always seems to move. I don't know why it does that, but it drives me nuts.
On your toes.
So you can reveal in project, reveal in Explorer. I set it to reveal in project. So if I'm in the timeline, I hit 0 on that, boom, brings it up right here. And then I can look at the settings, you know, it's 4K, whatever I need to do. And then if I need to get to the original of that file, I hit it again for the project window. And let's see here. There we go. There it is. So I don't have to go through and search for everything if I need that particular file. So that's one I use all the time. Again,
that's nice. It's a great way to find things, you know, when you have tons of footage.
Yeah, it's so helpful. Let's see here. So the last thing, and I just started doing this. I didn't even think about it. I've been doing it without it for years, but I use labels a lot in Premiere just to organize things. And labels are just these different colors that you can set a clip to. Let's see. So if you search for labels here, you'll notice what I did is, unfortunately I can't make this bigger, but I set all the different colors, and it doesn't really matter the color in my mind for what I do, but I set all the different colors to different numbers on my number pad. And that just makes it so much faster and easier to go through and label everything. So let's say, for an example, I wanted to grab all these and it's like, oh no, I want it to be purple. No, just so long as I can differentiate and color code everything is really helpful for me. So those are kind of like my personal like shortcut tips, I think, that for me work really well.
Those are great. Big fan of the color labeling in all my programs, all the programs I use. So yeah, that's a great tip.
It all stems from that organizational kind of OCD. Let's see here. All right, so let's talk selects. So we have our footage, we have our project. Let's just go ahead and make a new sequence here. And this is going to be temp. I'm going to delete it, but I would move that down into maybe racks here and call it like all footage selects or something like that. So what I did was I just highlighted everything here, new sequence. And what that does is it makes a sequence that is specified to that footage exactly. So it's automatically, if we go into settings here, it's automatically that 4K, where is it? Whatever the footage is, 3840, 2160, 4K at 60 frames a second. You could also just make your own big one, like, all footage selects and then drag everything in, which is what I would do. And I'll show you that in a minute. But for now, just for example purposes, the way I like to do selects is bring everything in, and hopefully by now we have our proxies all selected, that sort of stuff. There's a couple different methods on this, and I've met people that like to go, clip by clip. They set their in point, they set their out point. That's great. They bring it down on a timeline. Me personally, I don't like to do it that way. And the reason for that is because I just find it so much easier later on down the road when I need to go back to a project and it's like, hey, this shot's cool, but maybe a few seconds before it, there's something that might work for exactly what I need a bit better. And I can easily see that. So my process will be to go through, let's say we have all of our footage here. I'm gonna, if you hit Command K with this selected here, we're gonna put a cut and then Command K again. And then what I'll do is raise this up. And so that way, at a glance, I can kind of see, all right, this is where the money shot is. And then this might just all be junk. So I like to keep everything on a timeline just with everything so I can scrub through it easily, see it quickly.
I really like that. I think I'm gonna steal that idea, if that's okay.
Yeah, please. That's why I'm here. So the other thing too is like, let's say, okay, this is a cool shot of him pushing the bikes, and there's a lot of shots of them pushing bikes, don't worry. But let's just say, okay, that's a great shot. Another cut. Instead of using the mouse, I'm always a fan of shortcuts whenever possible. So if you hold Alt and then just up on the arrow key when this one is selected, and it's selected by default, if we put a cut here, another cut here, I used it with, I cheated a little bit, but normally it's selected by default. If you hold Alt and then the up arrow on the keyboard, you're just going to move it up.
Nice.
So that's kind of my process, and that's like small scope. So let's show it to you, my actual sequence here. And I'm going to delete this just to keep everything nice and neat. All right. So here we are, big scary. Let's zoom in and keep it a little bit more manageable here. Okay, so actually, tell you what, let's come back a bit. So
getting a lot of love for your tips in chat. Everybody's like, yeah, great tip, great tip.
Awesome. So glad to hear it, guys. So happy to help out. All right, so let's say we have all of our footage here. So when you're raising it up, and let's see, maybe the best example is, let's start over here. Just ignore everything, forget everything else on the timeline, doesn't exist. All right, so pretend like we're, in the timeline we just were. This is our footage here. I know that maybe this shot is a good shot. Yep, look at that. Some actual riding footage. Let's toggle this down just a bit, just a little choppy. Computer's eating resources right now. So there's a cool action riding shot. And you'll notice here, action. So what I like to do, we have all those clips. And this is kind of a little bit later in the phase, but I'll go through, pull all my selects, bump everything up just like this, right? So I know here's maybe a good action shot. I know here's a good action shot. They're tiny, but you kind of get the idea. And then all these other ones, maybe they're action shots, but they're not, top tier. So I'll do a couple different things. When this is up, maybe on the first level here, maybe that's an action shot that's worth keeping, but it's maybe not the best. If it's up here, hey, that's worth looking at. I'm going to go to that first for my editing, when I'm going to pull action shots for the edit. And to be honest, a lot of these probably are in the edit, anything that's bumped up here. And then you just keep that tier going. I'd go even higher. If it's an outstanding shot, has to be in the edit. Maybe that's a row 2, 3, 4,
Oh yeah.
So that's one way to do it. Hopefully is that making sense to you?
Yeah, that's a nice hierarchy way of like selecting, your favorites and then coming back down.
Yeah, so that's one way to do it. And then what I'll do is I'll go through, once I have all those selects pulled on my timeline, I'll go through, let's just say, again, like maybe we have a whole bunch here, and I'm just gonna do this really quick. Maybe we have a cut there. This one's good. Let's just say, we have all these different shots here, right? We have everything bumped up. And then what I'll typically do, so at the end of a sequence, which is actually all the way back here, I just remembered I still had it on here. This is all my footage strung out. And a Premiere sequence, unless they've updated it recently, can hold literally a full day's worth of footage, so 24 hours. And I hope you don't have to go through that much, but it happens. So this is all the footage strung out, with the airtime that's just getting places and, downtime. So here's all my good shots that's bumped up here, right? That's phase 1. We're going to go through, pull everything chronologically from day 1, camera 1, all the way through. Then what we're going to do, I always like to push this down really far. I like to have it on the timeline. So I'll just push it all the way to the back. And then I'll come over here. I'm going to select it all again. We'll delete this for now just to make room. And I'm going to hold Alt and just drag it over. I'm going to duplicate everything. So if I ever want to go back, here's everything. I can just scrub through stuff chronologically and see it. But then here, I'm going to pull this first line out because we know at stage 1, this first line is probably all garbage. Stuff that's not going to make the edit. We're just hanging, waiting for them to go. And excuse me. And I'm going to hit delete. So this is where that close gap tip that I was talking about comes in handy. We zoom in here. We have all these little gaps. So you can go up to, I think it's like edit sequence, or I don't even know where it's at because I set the shortcut. But basically, we're going to close the gap, and I'm just going to hit that minus button. And then boom, everything's right here. And I can just tab the down key and go through every shot one at a time if I need to. And these should be all of our, potentially usable content for the entire video.
Yeah, that's a really nice tip.
And then that's, at that point, I would go through and maybe pull, organize them maybe by color, like go through each one of these and say like, hey, all the yellows are all the action shots. All the purples are, maybe it's just hiking content, getting to the line. Anything that's blue, and maybe blue is for any dialogue or like side moments that could be useful to help build out the story. And basically, I'm going through it rather quick, so definitely feel free to ask questions, but that all translates to over here. And once I have it chronologically here, and the way I did this here is actually slightly different. So everything on this top row in green is an action shot. but it's still chronological. Anything yellow, and I can just see right away is, yellow is maybe a setup shot, hiking shot, anything I'm going to use to set the scene that could build the story. And then in my case,
so do you have,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have pre-selected colors already? Like, is this something you do for every project? Yellow is this?
No, because
okay.
I've tried to do that. I'm a huge fan of like fluorescent bright colors, and you can customize them all. But what I found, every time Adobe updates, sometimes it carries over, but a lot of times I'm working on different computers and it drives me nuts. So if you set it up, a lot of times, maybe if you're logged in, you copied everything properly, but a lot of times, more often than not, I'll run into the problem of like, it's yellow on one project on one computer, and then I go to the other computer and it's the default, like, I don't know, they come up with the weirdest names for all their colors. So,
but you would if you could, is what you're saying.
If I could, absolutely. And I do have one. I don't know why I've just picked this up over the years, but typically I try in the final edit when I'm organizing everything, orange is always for graphics. I don't know why, but that's my normal. So yeah, I have everything organized chronologically here, and I can look at it and know that, hey, if I know, because I was there, this is why I did it chronologically, and we're kind of telling the story here chronologically as much as possible. I know, like, on day 2 we did this, so I can easily go here and find it, and I'm like, where's the action shot from day 2? It's going to be kind of in this general area. And then the bottom row in this case for my chronological was just all scenics. And that's no writing, nothing, just kind of establishing the area, anything that might serve as, a cutaway shot, or just kind of showing. I mean, it's so beautiful out there. Like, I was so lucky to go on this trip. So
yeah, super envious of that. I mean, it looks amazing.
Oh, it's a bucket list one. Those are the ones you like definitely want to go on and like drop everything to go on it. So I do have it organized chronologically, and then I have my Skydio stuff, and then I always do titles here instead of markers, because markers tend to move around and it's a lot easier to just move footage just like that, whereas a marker won't move with it. And then again, I have kind of what we talked about before with, I basically decided what my buckets were going to be. And in this case, it was pretty simple for this edit. We have action stuff, we have hiking stuff, and then any sort of like product shots where it's like maybe they're doing a landing and we see Darren catching the drone. And again, because my client was Skydio, the purpose of this video, we needed to showcase how the drone was used. So that's why I have that bucket as well. A lot of other scenarios you may not have that, but do what works for you, and basically just build out these buckets. If your project's big enough, like really big, these buckets might not be the best option if you have a ton of footage. That's where you might want to come into racks up here and build out a sequence for each one of these buckets.
If anybody's just coming in, we're with Alex Hogue, and he is showing us his Premiere workflow. And what are we getting into now?
So I think, unless there's any other questions on that, I think we're going to push into music, which is super important, but I'm going to kind of walk through my process for how I go about finding music.
Absolutely.
All right. So
how do you find this amazing music?
Well, first I stabbed myself in the head a few times, because music is a process. It's not my favorite, and it's not my like expertise. It's a hard thing to do, to find the right music. Sometimes you have the right thing and you stumble upon it. Other times it can take a long time. And I guess after doing a lot of these types of videos where it's maybe not full narrative, but I do feel there is always some sort of story structure, I've gotten better at just kind of like figuring out what that should sound like or feel like. But it's always a process, and don't be afraid to spend a considerable amount of time looking for a good track, because there's nothing worse than having a client say, hey, can you change the music?
Yeah, especially if you've spent some of that time trying to find the music
Oh
and
my
it's not what they
gosh.
want. You're like,
So,
what? Excuse me? I would rather just re-edit something than
I mean,
sometimes go and find more music. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, half the time, if you send, and this is what we're focused on today is getting a V1. And I don't want to polish everything on purpose. And I don't want to send it to the client totally polished because I'm going to waste a ton of time if they come back and say, hey, I don't like the music.
Yeah.
That's going to change a lot of stuff. So you got to kind of be strategic with how you're using your time. But yeah, music's just it's a process. It's going to take some time. So be prepared for that. So let's talk music. Adobe has this cool feature built in. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Let's go back to editing and then just open up the essential sound. So if you open up the essential sound under window, Adobe, I believe they partnered with Epidemic Music, which is a stock library music. I use their stuff all the time. I usually do it from the web, just because that's what I'm used to. But they do have it built in now, which is kind of cool. So you can actually come in, and they have a few others as well. But that's a main source I use is Epidemic Music. There's a bunch of others like Artlist.io. extrememusic.com. So this is all for stock music that in most cases for a client like this, they would license the music. Either it's pay by track or it's like a monthly subscription. And there's all sorts of legality with music. You can't just go and toss a Led Zeppelin song on any edit unless it's for personal use, like on Instagram or something like that. But if it's for a business, that song is going to cost you $100,000. Whereas, if you come in here, you can get a subscription for a monthly cost or a yearly cost and use all the music you want. Let's pop open.
Out of all of those you listed, do you have a favorite? Like one that seems
I think
to
it
suit
kind
all of your needs?
It goes back and forth. I definitely used Epidemic for a really long time, but I've done enough edits now that it's like you kind of start using the same stuff, hearing the same songs. Currently, I've been using Artlist.io, I think it is, quite a bit. And then, wow, there's some others, but I can't think of them right now. But I think most recently I've been using Artlist, but I was using Epidemic for quite some time. And as I was saying, so Epidemic's built in here. I'm going to go ahead and mute this just so we can see kind of this cool feature in Premiere. Let's say we're searching by, I don't know, genre. And maybe we want maybe we want it to be worldly. Maybe we could try film. And this is just going to pull up a whole bunch of different stuff. And again, I kind of, I'm used to doing it in the website because you can search related tracks, that sort of stuff.
And these are just working as filters, right? Like kind of saying this is the genre that I'm looking for.
Exactly. Yeah, spot on. So these are just filters to kind of like get you started. And most of the time, I'll be honest, they're not super easy to search these sites with thousands of songs. So what I do is so if you had your selects pulled, which you should have by now. So this was a quick sequence I put together, I think when I was in the airport, once I pulled selects, and it was literally to show my client Skydio, hey, I'm on my way back from the trip. Here's some of the highlights, kind of like a dailies sort of thing. And I just went and tossed a bunch of different tracks under it. Initially, I just went with one track because it was really quick, didn't really matter. It's going to change. But I'm going to use this sequence kind of as an example of like, you get a sense of what the vibe is going to be, the type of shots we're going to see. And I like to maybe put this at the start, and I have no idea what these songs are going to be like, but let's just go ahead. Like it'll actually sync it and play it with it. So I like to play some of the footage, and then maybe it's in a window browser or in Premiere here, and play the music along the footage just to get a sense of what it's going to feel like. So right off the bat, amazingly, it almost synced up with the cuts there, but that's just, no, it's not working for me. I'm looking for something that's got good energy, but not too spicy. But it's kind of cool. I think you get the idea. So you can use this feature in Premiere and it'll sync it and play it with it for you. But to be honest, what's most useful when you're looking for music is looking at the waveforms. If you're trying to go through big libraries, look at the waveforms, look for what I call peaks and valleys. I'm going to look for a track that it's going to match time-wise. Like, we need something that's going to be well over a minute because this video is going to be 2 to 5. And we don't want to hear the same thing over and over. I'm looking for something a little bit dynamic, where maybe the music kind of drops down and maybe I can cut the music, slide it over and put a raw moment in there. So I'm automatically going to look at this and be like, nope, that's just, maybe it's just EDM to the wall. It doesn't go anywhere. But anyways, that's a cool feature. You can also do it online. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the tracks I pulled. So typically my process is I'll go through the website, make a playlist, and I'll just put a bunch of check marks and drop maybe 20, 30 songs that maybe sound kind of cool that I might want to take another look at. Then I'll go back, listen to them, filter that out to maybe like 5 to 10, and then download those, bring them into Premiere, and then put them on the footage and see, hey, is this going to work? How's it feeling? Because you might like it, one day and then come back the next day and be like, no, what was I thinking? This is terrible. So I'll show you a couple different tracks here. And again, these are all just going to live, under music. And then I have Artlist, Epidemic, and then from Ben. That's not a stock source. That's just a guy I know. So
thanks, Ben.
Ben's amazing. So so we got a couple different tracks here. I'll just play through some of them. And this was my process. I just toss stuff under and start chopping it up. This one, this is actually the track I put underneath originally when I was at the airport. So it is kind of timed out a little bit. So it feels like it works, but the tone just doesn't feel right for the actual full edit that we're going to make. Hopefully it's not that loud on your end. So we kind of get the idea with that one. It's not bad. It's not great. It's kind of so-so. Let's try another. Let's see here. I'm not even sure what these are. So we'll go through them together. We'll explore.
Let's do it.
And keep in mind, these aren't synced to the cuts, so you gotta have some imagination. So we're really just looking for kind of that vibe, whether it's like, hey, is this gonna work? So I do like those breaks where it kind of pauses there, because as an editor, that gives me a chance, if I need to cut there, scoot it over and pick up maybe at a different part of the song, or loop it or make it longer. This would be a cool moment for a breakdown, maybe some audio, or we're building up to something bigger. And then we're back into it. So that's, it's working, but to me, it feels a little electronic. It feels a little kind of like repetitive after a while once you listen to it for 2 to 3 minutes. Let's try another. And then the other thing I look for here, you'll notice I have the track, if possible, when you're looking for tracks, try to find stuff you can get stems with. And stems allow you to remix the song. I'll show that down here. If there's no stems, maybe there's an instrumental version. So maybe you don't like the instrumental, or maybe you don't like the vocals.
Stems? Yeah.
Stems, I'm going to get into that in just a second, but let me show you this. This is like, not a lot of tracks have stems. But a lot of tracks do have maybe an instrumental version or no vocals. So this is kind of just something you can keep in mind. I lined up both the vocals track here and the non-vocals track because I think the vocals are maybe cool at the beginning, but then by the end it's like, whoa, that's kind of weird. Because this is kind of like a maybe more worldly music vibe. So this would be kind of all set up. This is kind of cool. But the idea here with this track would be that maybe I don't like the vocals that come in here, and I could just line it up, cut out the vocals on this one, bring it in here, turn on this track, and then we're covered. Whoop, we gotta unmute it. So you can kind of remix the track, and I do that a lot. It's very, very rare that I'll grab a track, throw it in there, and it all works. And we'll get into that. So that being said, going back to that question in the chat about the stems, stems are basically each instrument broken down into a separate track. So if you line all those up, you can basically, you know, here's our bass. And a lot of people who edit, maybe some of them are into music as well, so they'll be really familiar with this. Here's our drum track. Instruments, melody, there can be a bunch of them. But what I like to do, and I do this quite a bit just because I have fun with it, and this is where you can kind of get creative with an edit if you're like, man, this really isn't working, but I got the stems, so maybe I'll just remix the music by myself. And you can kind of go in and turn things on and off.
Yeah, and you can charge for it.
Absolutely. Especially if they like it, so it'll be worth it.
Yeah,
but it makes it fun because you can kind of branch out. And then we got, this is the track we ended up going with, and I think the reason I like it, let's see here. So it's got these peaks and valleys here. When I listen to this, I basically hear, I'm going to break it down actually. So let's pretend this video is in here. And songs are usually, most songs are in a pattern of 4. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. So it'll repeat something. So I'll just kind of count it. And you can loop it that way if you know that. Most songs, modern songs, are that way. They're either in 3 or 4 counts. 2, 3, 4. And we're going to start back over at 1, 1, 2. And it's going to loop that way. So if you can count that out, look at where it is, that can be super helpful in trying to figure out how to splice up the song and make it work for you. So maybe this first part here, we'll just kind of build this out. This could be intro is kind of what I'm hearing.
So was this comprised of multiple tracks?
What's that?
Or stems?
This is,
Was
no,
this
I didn't have stems
Okay.
for this. This was just a typical track off of you know, a stock website. They didn't have instrumentals, no instruments, that sort of stuff. And let me see here if let's pop over. I might have already. Okay, so we can see this here. I'm going to turn off the video. Well, let me walk you through it right here. So basically,
Yeah, no
I hear
worries.
this. So we got, this repeats for a while. So we're already at like, So that's a good moment. And then we're going to drop onto some action. So this is going to be, I'm just spitballing here. So maybe this section is action, because that's where the music's really going. And then we go into this breakdown again. And in my mind, we could mark it here just so we know, but this is kind of like, we got this, it's not quite, you know, full throttle music. Maybe it's a little bit of a breakdown. This could be a moment for some talking or some setup, maybe some more hiking shots. Let's see how far that goes. Ooh. And then we're back into action for sure right here. We're just repeating what was over here. But what I like about this song, I heard it, and this is well before I had the edit, and I can just look at the waveform here to see it's going to be action. But what I like about it is there's a lot of opportunity to kind of cut it, splice it, and just get fun with it. Especially this part right here. I really liked this. So I love the piano that's coming in there, and some of those other instruments that are playing a part. So this whole section is kind of a breakdown, with like this section here being, you know, even more breakdown. And then let's see what happens. I think we're probably going to go maybe into another little flat section. Yeah. So this section here, this could be more, you know, setup or breakdown. And I can just look at the waveform. I know where we get back into the action right here. And this should carry us all the way to the end. It's just kind of repetitive. So then your closing is, you know, we got action here, more action. And then our closing is going to be kind of probably makes a change. Yeah, it's like right on that hit there. We have those other instruments coming in, and it's like, all right, this is going to be our outro. So right off the bat, I know we're going to want to get into this a little quicker. So let's see here. Yeah. You know what? Let's just make a new sequence to show this a little better real quick.
So how long did it take you to find this track for this project?
Gosh. Well, this is in the from Ben category. So that means it wasn't on batch one.
Man.
Yeah, so Ben is a awesome music guy. I've worked with him at GoPro. He's independent now, I believe, but we also use him at Skydio, and he's really good at helping to find tracks. That's his job, and he licenses music and that sort of stuff. Wow. So he actually found this one, sent it our way along with a couple others, and we listened to it and we're like, yeah, this will work great. So
excellent. Well, tell Ben Adobe Live sends their love.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I do too, because it wasn't on round one that I found the track to answer the question. Mm-hmm. We were going through and fiddling with a couple of them. So actually, before I get into this, let's see here. This might be a good opportunity to chat real quick on how I'm going to break this down in a story structure sort of way. Like, what am I looking for, and how are we going to do that?
Yeah, audio plays a really big part in telling the story, and that's why we put so much emphasis on finding the tracks and all that stuff. Laura in chat says it's really great to see more detailed audio workflow in Premiere. So thanks for this.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you for watching. All right, so every story, even something like this that's maybe not a Netflix narrative, you want to try to build in some narrative. So what do we need? We need we're going to open on an open shot. That could be a couple different things. That could be it could be a cold open. So maybe we don't even open with music, and it's just on a really intense moment. That basically your goal of the opening shot is to hook people, especially in today's world with social media and all this stuff. If you don't hook people right away, they're out. They're not going to watch. So you could do a cold open. We could get into it with a shot that's just like, whoa. You could also bookmark it, what's called bookmarking. So you open on one shot, and then maybe your closing shot matches up and finishes that. So we're going to have an opening shot. That's going to be really quick, a couple seconds. Then we're into our intro and establishment. So what we need to do in case of this video is establish the what and why. So what are we doing out here? We're mountain biking, and we're filming with a Skydio drone, since this was a video for my client Skydio. We need to establish where we are, because people are probably going to want to know that, but also the visuals in this case, in this project, gives it away instantly. We know we're in some epic place. And then we want to establish the who. So maybe during this time, you also want to initially introduce your characters, in which case for us, it's Darren and Kenny. Then we need to get into some action. And at this point, don't wait too long. If you wait too long and you're trying to build out this huge story, people aren't invested yet, they're not going to stick around. So action is when you want to drop that first bit of music and you want to get into some good shots. You want to give a little bit of payoff for that viewer being there for a few minutes, or sorry, a few seconds. And then they're like, okay, I'm kind of into this. Now show me something cool. Don't wait too long. That's the big takeaway.
Alex, Steve Festus Casaboom in chat just asked, do you ever use Audition to edit music?
I've used it to clean up audio before, but I'm definitely not an audio guru. So the quick answer to that is no, I don't work within it, but I do think it's a great tool to use. I'm just not a super huge audio guru. I always ask my friends for that, but I do quite a bit of basic work within Premiere. Anything that's advanced, we send it out to somebody usually to like really dial it in for broadcast or something like that. But Audition's a great tool, and it's great to use it to like clean up audio just really quickly if you need to. So after we're at the action, this, I think, we're basically going to bounce back and forth between action and some unique moments. And a lot of people, they'll skip those unique moments. That I think personally what makes this video interesting is that we have those little breakaway moments where they're climbing up the hill or up the side of a cliff with a bike. And it's kind of a behind the scenes moment that we could have skipped all that, but it wouldn't be as good of a video. So for me, this is what makes your story. This is what makes it different and unique compared to just a montage with some music and some cool shots. So basically, you're going to look for those sections where maybe you can break away in that music, break away from the action shots. And what it does is it gives the viewer some relatability and authenticity. So they're like, whoa, they're really doing it. This is really cool. But then also, not only for the viewer, but for the editor, they get the chance to kind of reset everything. So we can cut the music there if it dips down, reset to some audio, a natural audio moment, and then we can maybe cut to a new location. So that's kind of my workaround when we talked earlier of like, how are we going to get from different shot to different shot, because there's not much to set that up.
Yeah, that's a really good point about the behind the scenes stuff, and it becomes less of a reel and almost more of like almost a documentary sort of like a splash reel documentary. I don't know what you would call it, but it does make it relatable. It invites the viewer in, and that's honestly that's what I saw in a lot of your work. That I was like, this is great. This is amazing.
And I gotta thank all the people I worked at GoPro for like years and years, because that's where I learned that.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get really creative with some of that stuff and figure out, what makes it unique. And if you can build that engagement with your viewer, they're gonna watch the video, and you want them to stick around. So it also allows some breathing room. So again, we have those peaks and valleys in the music, so you get some breathing room there. So it's not just constant shot, 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 but we get to see some of the other elements to the story, and it really becomes more of a story versus just a highlight of a bunch of cool shots. Also great for, funny moments, sketchy moments, all sorts of stuff that might have happened on the trip that's just fun. And at the end of the day, video is entertainment, right? So make it fun. So we have our action, maybe we go into a breakaway, and then we go back into some more action. And this breakaway, like I said, it could be some setup stuff, it could be something authentic. You get to decide that. Back into more action, music's hitting, and then finally, and again, we might go back and forth between this a few times, but after we do that a couple times, we're going to go bring it home, wrap it up. So the audio and video, excuse me, the audio and video should start to conclude. Maybe it's the end of the day, end of the trip, whatever. Another thing that I see a lot is with the music at the end. A lot of people will end the video on a down note. So maybe the song ends and it starts to fade out, and then they bring up, maybe it's a bumper or like a logo, or maybe the video just fades to black. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think it can be a lot more exciting and leave the viewer with a better feeling if you're able to like maybe bring it down, but then at the end when that bumper comes on, or whatever a call to action is, if it's for a client, bring the music back around and have it hit again, so that you're actually at the end of the video, the viewer's leaving with that kind of upbeat, keep the party going sort of thing, instead of like more of a, I guess it's just a feeling, I guess, but I'll kind of show that here. But that's just a tip that I've learned along the way, is consider changing the way you typically would just end with the music, and instead maybe cut the music at a low point and then bring it back in and keep it going and then fade out. So now we're back to here, back to our music. So we're looking for that intro, and so here's kind of that first cut basically, and it loops itself. Kind of doing the same thing. And then this section is kind of like, all right, this is how we're going to cut. We're going to cut here and here. And then, if I let this play through, we're getting at, this just isn't, this music can't sustain the action. So we need to shorten it, because like I said, we want to get our viewer in quicker. So we're going to find a way to kind of trim this down, because I think by the absolute latest, we want to be, yeah, perfect. So we want to be hitting that action no later than 20 seconds in a lot of cases. And that's not universal, but for this type of video, you want to find a way to kind of trim and rework this music. This isn't going to line up perfectly, but we can give it a try. That'll take a little bit of work.
So at this stage, are you just blocking out based on the loose timing, without syncing to video?
At this point, yeah, I'm just trying to visualize, what can this edit look like? I wouldn't necessarily go this in depth. I'm just kind of showing the process.
Right.
So this is just kind of my mindset. So I'm thinking here, let's see, I think, yeah. So we have it here with the markers. I kind of built it out so we could save some time. So opening shot here. And this is the actual edit. So we can kind of take a look here, and I'm essentially reverse engineering what I did just to show the process, because I'm not going to walk you guys through all the editing, sitting here going through every single shot, but I think you can kind of get the concept. So I know I want to open. It needs to be quick. Let's see here. Let's turn off the proxy for a second. I don't know why that's not scaling right. So we'll do that way. So my opening shot I chose is basically, holy cow, these guys are on the side of a massive cliff. Like, I would want to know more. But I'm also not using my absolute best footage yet, because we want to save that for when the music really hits. But it's got me asking questions. So it feels like a pretty good opening shot, and it's telling me where we are. Out here with some Skydio drones. And again, it's really short. This shot goes on, pulls out even further, but I'm out of it at 3 seconds because I know we need to get through that intro establishing. Out here with some Skydio drones, shooting some mountain biking. So this next section on the timeline here, if we come into here, we have this shot here. Let's turn those proxies back on. Here with some Skydio drones, shooting some mountain biking. What are we doing? We're out here with the Skydio drones because this is a client product video. I want to mention the product as soon as possible up front. And I'm also saying what we're doing. And this is where, again, you kind of have to get creative. I never planned on using this footage, this behind the scenes footage. It was just kind of me out there self-capturing. And then it ended up being that, it helped tell the story. So, and one thing I like about Skydio's media team is they're very into using the behind the scenes. And I'm also so into that. I think people love seeing how stuff is made and like being a part of it. So they were totally on board with doing that, which was awesome. Biking.
Yeah,
Sorry about that.
To get a zone like this that's just endless slabs.
It's like rugged West Coast coastline. So unique.
So what else is happening here? We're still in this intro section. I chose a shot where I could quickly identify who we're working with, and that's Kenny Smith and Darren Bearclaw. And basically, I just was looking for a fun, cool shot where, we could put their names up. It doesn't need to be super long. You'll have to get creative for whatever your edit calls for, but we're identifying the characters here, so we know who the athletes are. We don't have to introduce them later. We kind of already did that. And then this shot here is just so grand. And where the music is.
To get a zone like this that's just endless slabs.
It's like rugged West Coast coastline. So unique.
That shot just screamed like title card to me, or like location card.
Absolutely.
So hopefully that's all feeling pretty good. And then at this point, like I mentioned earlier, we're 19-20 seconds in, and now we need to give some payoff. So we're going to show some action, maybe not our best stuff, and try to link it together as best as possible. And at this point, I'm kind of just feeling it out. Imagine, none of this on the timeline is here. Imagine all this isn't here and it's just the music. I'm going to kind of just go to the beats of the music and see what feels good and what shots work. And this is where, I have my footage selects here, and I'm going through and I'm like, okay, yeah, this action shot feels really good. This one feels good, cuts well together. And I'm just going to kind of piece it in like a puzzle. And it's going to go to the music for that, as much as we can. So you'll see here, there's a cut on the music. If we look at this track right here, kind of goes into this breakdown after only doing one set of that kind of 4-beat pattern. And that felt a little too quick to me. So I basically cut and looped the track because I feel like we just spent 20 seconds describing where we are, what we're going to do. We need to show some of the content. And if we only showed it for, 12 seconds, I just didn't feel like enough payoff for sitting through 20 seconds of introduction. So that's where you get creative and you cut the track, loop it, and then maybe we go into the breakdown. So you just do another section of this 4-beat music pattern, throw in some more shots.
Question in chat, and this is not about music, but talking about some of the titles, were they made in After Effects or Premiere?
Yep.
I don't know if you have placeholders in this one. Okay.
Yep, that's exactly it. So today we're just kind of focusing on getting like a really structurally sound edit done for, in this case, we would upload and send it to the client for review. I'm not concerned at this stage. These are placeholders. I'm not concerned about, whatever the real graphics are at this point. We'll get to that. But I'm just wanting to show the client, hey, this is a placeholder. This is where graphics would go. We can bring this into After Effects, which we will do tomorrow, and show kind of what actually ended up happening with the graphics and how we went about doing that.
Cool. If you're just joining us, we have about 30 minutes left in the stream, but we will be back tomorrow. Yeah, if there's any questions you have in chat, if anybody wants to ask Alex some questions, we have a little bit of time left, so you've got time.
Awesome. So let's see here. I'll go ahead and just finish this up and then we can move on to some other stuff. So again, we're looking for those moments to make it unique that, like I said, we could just keep looping the music and going through it, but that's not going to make it fun. So look for those down spots in the music and pick a track that allows for that. So we can see here.
I launched the Skydio drone to scope for access to this line that I scouted from Google Earth. And it looks like we can hike up the ridge and get to where we want to go. Not only are drones rad for filming, but they're also rad for scouting.
Oh, it looks a little rugged, eh?
So the audio here isn't mixed on purpose because we're pretending like we're just really early on to show it to the client. But what he says here is, we're definitely not going to get fat on this trip as we're hiking around. We got Kenny up here who's kind of a goofball, and he's like, oh, it looks a little rugged, eh? So we have these kind of fun moments that we want to sprinkle in there. Because it's great footage and there's a lot more of it, but it's enough to give a little bit of comedic relief, as well as I have these clips here of Darren talking about the drone, which is what we want for this particular video. We do want to call attention to the drone. So we kind of just piece it into the story, and he uses it not just to like film content and get cool shots of himself, but he uses it to fly it up to the top of these, a couple 100-foot cliffs to see what it looks like, because we did a lot of hiking out there and it's exhausting. So, and then at this point, what's that?
You have to do any training just to go on this hike?
Oh, well, me, myself, as I mentioned, I'm up in Bend, Oregon, and I'm a true Bendite. I do all the outdoor activities. I've run some marathons, but yeah, it's exhausting, especially when you have to carry around, 20 plus battery or 16, 20 batteries plus, a DSLR, lenses. I think we had 3 drones with us that I was carrying around. And then these granite slabs, especially when they're wet, are really slippery. And some of them are pretty steep. So there was a moment there where I was putting 2 drones, because sometimes I'd have 2 to 3 drones up in the air at the same time. And there's a moment where I'm packing everything up and it's on, actually, I can show you, it's,
oh my gosh,
this right here. It was right after this shot. So I'm on this slab here and it doesn't look very steep, but where I'm standing it is, and it's kind of got this mossy stuff. And I go to set down the drone in the case, and it starts sliding down the hill. I managed to grab it right at the last second, but yeah, I almost lost like just 2 drones, and just all sorts of stuff loves to roll down these granite rocks. So
Safety first, Alex. Got to be safety first.
oh yeah, always. So yeah, at this point, we're back into the action, maybe pay off a little bit more.
It's like somebody came in here.
And again, I'll just let this play out. I think you guys get the idea, but what I'm doing here is just looking for those sections in the music where it kind of breaks down and we can put in some other natural moments.
It's like somebody came in here. Concrete.
There's a cool little rock face on the spine for rule velocity.
And, you know, it is a little hard to hear them. It's not mixed here, and it's better in the final version, but maybe that's a section for some subtitles, just to help get across what's being said. And then finally we have, you know, this last moment here.
Iron up this whole freaking amazing landscape. Looks like there's a 6 shelf that we can ride.
There's no way to get around.
Down that way.
Sheer cliffs all the way around.
Yeah, we're really doing it now. That's what we're doing. We're really doing it. So, have you heard of the Whistler Bike Park?
So here's kind of an example of like, maybe I cut the music there, slide it over. We have this longer raw moment. What I eventually end up doing, which we'll go over tomorrow when we talk more about polishing and audio, but I'll take this last little section here and kind of loop it multiple times so we have something underneath, and then we'll go through and clean up all this audio and you know, put something under there so it doesn't sound so hollow and empty. But that's not what I would do at a V1 stage for getting it to a client, because that's polishing stuff that takes time. Let's see here. So sorry, were you gonna say something?
Yeah, we got another production question. We're gonna have to have you back just to answer production questions.
Oh, I'd love
what
to.
What backpack were you using to carry your gear? And also, was there a second backpack for camping equipment, or is it a one-fits-all situation?
So for hiking around like a day pack, I use a F-Stop gear. They make some solid backpacks. This one I think was the Loca, but yeah, it's basically a camera bag made to carry all kinds of different lenses. You can strap everything on. I had drones strapped on the outside, all sorts of stuff. And then camping, we got there, set up camp. I had a big backpacking backpack with all my camp gear and everything, set it up, and we stayed at camp. Basically, I had a base camp going. But yeah, that was a separate bag for that.
Thanks.
So we lay out all of our footage. I'm kind of going to speed this up a little bit. I had some other stuff I wanted to cover, but I do want to get into Frame.io and how I would export this and send it for review. So basically, to get it to a client, I'm not worried about it being super dialed at this point, but I would go through and maybe, you know, rescale. This is some GoPro footage. It's scaled up quite a bit because it was set to frame size, which will just automatically match the top and bottom. But I would go in just for the client review. This is really easy. Maybe change that to 200. It's 4:3 and kind of reframe it a little bit as needed. I would do that on all these shots here, just little polishing tweaks, but stuff that doesn't take a lot of time that the client's like, oh, why are the sides of the screen black?
Right.
Graphics here, if I listen to the music, there's a couple different opportunities here. What I end up doing is speed remap, time remapping, which if you right click, time remap, and I do this all the time, especially you'll see it. I mean, go watch any GoPro video ever made, and there's some form of time remapping usually. But if you right click, time remapping, speed, hit P for the pen tool, you can basically come in here. This is your start point, and we're at you drag it up and down. We're at, 100% speed, and we want to ramp it all the way up to, well, we'll see here. I want it to get to, I want Kenny's name to be here. We're going to go forward. And then with the music beat, I kind of want it to sync up to in here a little bit. Let's hear what that sounds like. So I want it to basically hit when Darren comes on. So let's bring this back down to 100 just to see what it looks like. And then what these little bars here do is kind of just ease into it. So that's how you do it. But essentially what I'm trying to get to is this. So I wanted to time remap this a bit. Just these are little tweaks you can do throughout to make your edit a little bit more exciting. It works fine without it, but if you can add this stuff in, it just adds a little bit more quality to it. So it's very subtle on here, and it might be hard on the playback. But I wanted it to ramp up to get to Darren and then slow back down. And what I did here, I think I slowed it to 50% since the footage was actually shot in 60.
We have another question from chat. Do you shoot for the edit or shoot as much coverage and then make the edit?
I think it depends on what you're doing, what the project is. If it's stuff like this, I think you try to get everything you can that's going to work. It also, with big cameras like Reds or even film cameras, I have shot on film, and you really got to plan everything out. You can't shoot everything. With stuff like GoPros, you can let it roll, and that's sometimes how you get the most authentic moments, because stuff happens when you otherwise wouldn't be rolling, and you can use that. But I think overall, yeah, for stuff like this, you try to record a lot, and hopefully you have some hard drives. If you're shooting 8K 60 footage, you're gonna run out of space, so you got to be strategic, I would say, with how you're shooting. And hopefully you've done your pre-production, you kind of plan that out a bit. So, I'm not shooting. We hiked for hours and hours and hours. I'm just going to grab a couple hiking shots. And literally by the end of day one, I was like, wow, we already have enough hiking, but I need it in different areas. So, how much time we got left?
We have about 20 minutes.
All right, let's go ahead and, I kind of want to get to the Frame.io stuff just because I think that's going to be new for a lot of people. So let's assume that we have our first draft edit here. We've dialed things in enough for the client to see and get an idea. And our goal really is to get that structure in. Hopefully they like the music. Hopefully all the content is there and they're feeling good about, there's enough, the product's up soon enough, that sort of stuff. So let's go ahead and export this. So, gosh, I haven't done it this way in ages, but if you go to File, Export, Media, that's one way to do it. Anyone who's used Premiere for a while, if you just hit Control M or Command M on a Apple, I guess, we'll bring it up to the export page. So I'm not worried about full quality. This is just for review. So what I'm going to do, it has all these presets built in. This is relatively new in more recent versions of Premiere. Yeah. So this whole layout here has actually been updated over the last few versions, I think.
And they're constantly updating the presets. So the next version will have even more, whatever else is new. It'll constantly be updating.
Totally. And I don't use these, but I do use the presets. So, and I've actually been told this on meetings with YouTube and stuff so I could, if I was going to YouTube for this at this point, you could do, I guess if we come into presets here, we could do, what is it? H.264 match quality at, high bit rate. Upload it to YouTube. It's a very similar file to the YouTube one. But what I've been told, and I don't know if this is true anymore, is that if you do the actual YouTube one for YouTube, they won't re-encode it on their end. But if you change anything about it, it'll cause it to re-encode it again on YouTube. I don't know if that's still true or not, but just a little food for thought. So if I am going to YouTube, I do try to keep the exact YouTube preset unless there's very specific guidelines for what it needs to be. In this case, I know the YouTube just makes a H.264. I think that's fine for review. I would put this over in our exports folder under review, and we could just select that. And then we can name it, you know, version 1 for review or whatever we're going to go with. And then at this point, if you come down into these settings here, this is where I was talking about. You can hit match source. That'll make it 4K. Now we've gone to a custom. I don't necessarily need the 4K, but we have that option if we want it. 4K would be for the final export.
Mm-hmm.
And then audio, I leave everything just as it is. So at this point, you could hit export. We decided where we're saving it to. And it's going to render out its thing. So what I'm getting to is we're trying to upload this to a website called Frame.io. This is Frame.io. I believe Adobe acquired them relatively recently, like within the last year, but I've been using Frame.io for several years now, and it's a great tool. I haven't found anything better. There's companies that do similar things, but I think Frame.io is just the best, and their uploads are really fast. So if I had that project exported, let's see here. Let's just, I think it was this one maybe. Drag it in. You have your client list here or your folders, however you want to set it up. I set it up for clients. Here I am, I'm uploading. Let's just pause that. Cancel it rather. So you'd upload it here. And then let's see. This is what it looks like. So we'll go over some of these notes tomorrow, and we're going to get into basically how that works. This is how you upload it if you're doing it through the web browser, which personally, that's what I normally do. There is a built-in plugin inside of Premiere, which I'll show you in a second if we have time to take a look at that. But basically, this is the video. You click on it. You have the option to come up here, share. There's two options here. There's share for review and there's share as presentation. Share for review. Let's go ahead and just hit that. It's going to give you all these options here for link settings, that sort of stuff. If you need to put a password on it, you can do that. Where's that? Settings. You can allow downloads, not allow them, comments, that sort of stuff. So this is specific to review. I'm going to copy that to clipboard. The link has been made. That's the link I'm sending out.
Oh, okay. There's a question about how big of a file can you send a client for review?
I think I would assume that comes up to, I think there is a included pack. I could be wrong on this, but I think there is an included package now that Adobe Creative Cloud, again, don't quote me on this, but I think there is like some inclusion there for file size and like space, what they allot to you. For review purposes, this isn't your final thing. The finals you're going to send, I mean, you can send them through here. They can download them, but maybe you use Dropbox or maybe you give it to them on a hard drive with the full project and all that. But I don't think there is a file size as far as I know. I've never run into one.
Yeah, I wondered about that. It was a good question.
Yeah, not entirely sure, but hopefully you're not uploading 70 gig files.
That's right. Chat, go test the limits and get back to us.
All right. So the other option here, that was our link. So if you let's go back to that real quick. If you do this option I mentioned here, there's two different ways to do it. If you share for review, that means if you're sending out this link, people can comment and review, which is what we want. So we want to send that to the client so they can make their notes on there. There's also this option, share as presentation. So view only links with custom branding, which you can set up. If you do it this way, it's literally going to load a page just like this when the people go to it. So let's go ahead and copy that. And this is just for someone to take a peek at it, but you don't want them to make comments. So it's your own personal YouTube. So now we just have this version. You can't do anything, but you know, it's a lot faster.
Oh, Laura has an answer for us. According
let's hear
to,
it, Laura.
looks
What do
like
we got?
it looks like it's 500 gigabytes.
Oof, that's a lot.
Yeah,
it's pretty big.
That is massive. Yeah.
So here we are. So if I were the client coming in here, basically I can go through this whole video. Let's say we got some notes on here. It's timed out. Just type in your comment. It's pretty straightforward. It's built to be intuitive. You can also put spans on there. Let's see, time span. So when you type in a comment, you can also drag this out if you want it to cover an entire section that you're referring to, which is kind of a cool little feature. Oops.
Yeah, I've never used frame.io for this. This is amazing. Like, I love the ability to get your feedback directly from the client. And of course it has color coding. So
yeah, everything's color coded by the person. And then we'll talk about this bit tomorrow, but as an editor on the upload side, you can come in here and as you're going through comments, you can check them off, which is just super helpful. So I always encourage my clients to, instead of getting like an Excel spreadsheet or just like an email, it's so much better to have it here. It's synced up to the time code. I'm going to talk about tomorrow how we can actually bring this directly into our timeline with markers, and it'll put the markers on the timeline for you. So you can just see it right there in your sequence. And then finally, we can, let's say, you know, you can draw in here as well. You know, hey, let's take him out. We don't want him there, or whatever the comment is. And that all carries over. So
is that locked to the timeline?
It is, yeah. Not in Premiere, which you can lock at Premiere. I'll definitely get into that. But yeah, it would lock to there. Basically, it would show up as another comment at this time code. So all sorts of stuff here. Here's that drawing shot. You could put another note with it right there. So if you have a black frame, which is pretty common, you know, you forgot to close that gap and you got some random black frame, someone could call it out, or, you know, all sorts of little glitches, or if you're doing animation, that sort of stuff. Real quick. So let's go back to edit here. Now, I did mention you can do this same process within Premiere. I personally like to do it separate because I'm kind of old school. I like to have the file right where I want it. You can tell it to render out a version as well. But if we go to Window, it used to be under extensions for people that were using Premiere previously. They've moved it since they did acquire Frame.io. But now it's under, if you go to Window, Review with Frame.io, it's going to bring up this window here, and you're going to log into your Frame.io account. And this is all built in now. So we can put this wherever we want. I guess it's fine here. Oh boy, computer's lagging. Let's see here.
See if it pulls
the
up.
other way we can do it too. If we go to workspaces, I think they have a custom workspace. Yeah, review. Let's see if that one is pulling up. Well, I'm not sure what's going on with the window right now. I think it's because I've changed my resolution from earlier in the stream, but it could be something going on. Let's see. So you could go to, I believe it's upload. I don't do it this way. Huh. Let's see. Well, it's being finicky. Let's see here. You edit long enough, you're going to run into this kind of stuff. So let's try going here. This is working great before the stream. So,
of course. Yeah, that's how it always goes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
The test run is always perfect.
Well, I'll have to just kind of explain the process, and typically it's working. I think it's because my computer's got so many things going on with the stream and everything right now, but you can, it is possible if you just pop open that window, you can upload, basically you tell it, create a new thing. It works just like the website. So it's all within a window kind of built into Premiere. You log into your Frame.io account, loads just like the website. You hit upload, select what folder you want. The settings that pop up are basically you can export it and just send it straight into Frame.io and not save it to your computer. You can also check a little box that says render it to your computer if you want to save the raw file, or sorry, not the raw file, but the exported file to your computer. And then hopefully tomorrow we'll have this working well enough that we can also show the process, which is super cool and super unique, of bringing those client notes directly into the sequence here as markers, which is pretty neat. So
yeah, all
I
of
think
that
that's kind of the
already
big
is fascinating.
Yeah, and there's, I don't know how they do it, but Frame.io is way faster at uploading than any other platform I've used. Just unbelievably fast. So definitely recommend checking it out. Let's see.
Chad, if you have any other questions you want to ask real quick, and Alex, if you want to get to a stopping point so we can get a little recap.
Yeah, I think man, this is a bummer this isn't popping up, but I think we're at a pretty good spot. I kind of got to, we had to speed through some of it. There's so much to cover, and I definitely want to chat with, everyone and kind of go over that whole process of, just teaching people what it's like to edit and how to get more efficient at it, that sort of stuff. But today we basically covered going over a mountain bike video project that I shot and edited for one of my clients, which was Skydio. They're a drone manufacturing company. And basically today was part one of covering how I go about finding music, pulling selects, structuring my Premiere bin here, structuring media when you're bringing it in, how to keep everything clean and organized, how to go about kind of like imagining what that story arc is going to be, and then going through putting that footage in and just trying to get to not a fully polished edit, but something that you're okay to send out to get structure lock.
So what's the plan for tomorrow? Just a brief overview.
Yeah, so tomorrow, the goal or the hope is I want to show you guys, finish up here and show you how, let's assume we're sending this out and we get notes back from our client. How do we go about changing those notes, polishing things up, but also using Frame.io to bring in all of those comments, start checking them off, see what some typical notes might be, and how to go about addressing some of that. And then we'll get into talking, not super in depth, but we'll go into basically getting the edit good enough to level out your audio for music, voiceover, so you can hear everything. What else? If we have time, I also want to show you dynamic linking in After Effects and how you can build out some simple graphics. And then again, if we have time, I'd love to show the captions process for Adobe, which is pretty cool because they've updated it so it actually will auto transcribe your sequence. So anything that's being said, it'll give you a good starting point. You definitely need to go through and edit it, but it's great to have that built into Premiere now.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all of that, especially the what we wound up maybe doing in After Effects, or how you did some of that. Was going to be, I think that was a question from earlier today. People were asking about graphics and how you made them. This has been awesome, kind of eye-opening in a lot of ways. The footage, of course, is amazing. Chat, thank you so much for all the questions. We will be back tomorrow for day 2. Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific time for part 2. Just like Alex said, we'll be using Frame.io to take care of some of the comments that will be coming back from clients. And Adobe Live will be back tomorrow morning with Jordan Ellis and Tuyen Nguyen on the Adobe Express channel. But yeah, thanks, Alex, for hanging out with us, and can't wait for day 2.
Yeah,
and,
my
thanks.
pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Thanks to everyone
this really,
chiming in on the chat too. It's been super fun.
Yeah, this has been great. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see everybody soon. Have a good one. Later.